A barbershop has character. It's like an oasis in an urban desert. Greetings, this is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers, I'm your host, and today we'll look at a couple of films beginning with Barbershop. This film was directed by Tim Story. It has photography under Tom Priestley. The story was written, a screenplay I believe, by Mark Brown, editing by John Carter, music under Terry Blanchard, and we have a pretty large cast. Of course, Ice Cube stars Jasmine Lewis, Cedric the Entertainer, Anthony Anderson, Michael Eli, and just quite a large cast. In the way, this particular film reminded me of a soldier story. We do have types in this particular film appearing in the barbershop, and although humor abounds in this particular film, unlike Soldier Story, we do have an array of characters calculated to clash and cause action, and we have such as a rather educated barber, has a vocabulary that's kind of flashy, and we have a two-time loser ex-con named Ricky, who is trying to go straight. Is given a chance by Calvin, the Ice Cube character, and he sort of represents the street smart sort of part of the black population. There is a kind of a delightful West African, I think Nigerian, he is supposedly, who is kind of like a gentle bull, but who proves later on that he could be a raging bull if needed. He also is amusing in his misunderstanding of contemporary American black patois. There is also a female barber who is having a romance with a cad, and she's also trying to assert herself in this male milieu. And we see an example of this in an incident involving apple juice. We have Cedric the Barber, sort of an iconoclastic old black barber, someone who knows his trade, someone who has seen quite a lot, opinionated, and kind of delights in being sort of the devil's advocate, or to take the non-usual position, as it were. He has sort of a sidekick, also an old-timer. I think his name was Rufus, but at any rate, He usually sides with the Cedric character, but not always. And we see this when the question of Rosa Parks comes up. Now, we also have this white barber. He played, I think, by the Michael Ealy character, who looks somewhat like Adam Sandler. He's kind of new on the job. He has the first chair, the first barbershop. Calvin usually starts a new guy there. And he has not been making a whole lot of business. He has like no customers in 3 days. There may be an implication here of slight reverse racism, as they say, of the type. I don't think a white man can cut a black man's hair. I don't want to be the first to try at any rate. But later on in the film, against the intelligent, verbally skilled black fellow, I think his name was Jimmy or Timmy, he does prove that he knows his stuff. These two are also adversaries, so to speak, in that the Timmy, well-educated black is one of those blacker-than-thou type blacks, and has a certain attitude toward whites, which he has not worked out. So we see a little conflict there, too. But let me just, again, emphasize that humor abounds in this and so forth. And it's not, when you have these butting of heads, it's really not all that caustic. But we do have these various kinds of people in the shop offering the potential, as in Soldier Story, for conflict and for interest. Now, I will say also in regard to Ice Cube that I think he's a very impressive fellow. He may be one of the most startling talents to arise in the black community. He seems to have stumbled upon a concept of taking what you usually recognize as a TV sitcom series and bringing it to the big screen. He kicks out these movies of which he is the star, and they come pretty quickly, and they are of that sort. We're introduced to the same kinds of people that Ice Cube's character knows, and sometimes he is, and usually I would say, kind of a Bud Abbott type, kind of a straight man to one of the other characters, Lou Costello. He is someone who is usually portrayed as more practical, somewhat dreamy maybe, big ideas and so forth, but kind of feet on the ground and in a milieu where that's not always to be found. He also, I think, probably as with most black sitcoms on TV, owe a little bit of homage to the old series on TV of Amos and Andy, with such as Kingfisher and Sapphire and whatnot. At one period, that whole series came under a vicious assault by the blacker-than-thou radical crowd. But I think quietly, many TV series have gone to school on that original one, and I see in Ice Cube a certain descendancy also. But at any rate, he's an impressive guy, I think, and although any one of his movies taken by itself is certainly not great or anything like this, he is putting these things out and giving perhaps the best coverage of contemporary black culture, at least in the urban area, with the problems attendant and with humor and affection and I think probably truth. So we do think quite a lot of what he is doing. The only other black director I think is really remarkable is, I think his name is John Singleton, who is fearless and potent in his vision, seldom seen, unfortunately. But we do have Ice Cube kicking these things out quite regularly, and it's kind of ingenious of him, I think. Now, this particular film has music as a kind of transition signature. So we get quite a lot of music of the rap type primarily. Now, it also has a storyline that goes something like this. A third generation barbershop owner, married, expecting a child in the not too distant future, who has ambitions in the musical area, is faced with a decision, the proverbial fork in the road decision. And he is a little bit unhappy with his barbershop business. He does not seem to be getting the charge from it he gets from the music. There are a lot of exasperating aspects to it, not getting paid regularly by the barbers who utilize the chairs in the shop, and an assortment of other things like that. He's in debt, property tax people are after him, and so forth. So he kind of makes the decision on his own, without really conferring with his wife, that for the good of the family, he is going to sell out to a Mr. Wallace, who is a sort of sexual entrepreneur, but has his fingers apparently in such items as loan sharking and chop shop, automobile places, and so forth. Kind of a conglomerate proprietor of illegal doings. Now, a deal is struck to sell, and then we have, after a conference with the wife, a changing of the mind and an attempt by the Ice Cube character Calvin to rectify the situation, to get back to status quo ante, and to keep his shop. This kind of is the main story, but there is kind of a parallel story that also is to be found in this film in regard to two doofus characters who have stolen an ATM. Now, to kind of give you an idea of how this second theme works with the first, the main story, think of the film Ice Age and that saber-toothed squirrel and his monomania about the acorn. And you get the kind of relationship that is isolated for the most part, but does touch crucially on the main story. Now, this particular film opens up with some rap-type music. It has a kind of tight looping quality to it. As tight as a well-made braid. And this leads us into the story. We also have some video while the music is played of urban settings. We are, after all, in South Chicago, in kind of a rundown neighborhood. During this period, we see some commotion in front of a store and a police car and whatnot. There's a cut to the abode of Ice Cube, who is, again, Calvin. He's with his wife and in the home, and he has a little studio he's made, and he's going to the studio to try to perfect a CD by which he hopes to make a lot of money. Something goes wrong. He almost electrocutes himself. His wife runs in. Calvin, what's happening here? He kvetches a little bit about the studio, the equipment, and what went down, and she kind of is good-natured about this. You know, he has his dream, and he is something of a dreamer, as it turns out. She, I believe, puts it down mostly as pie in the sky. Does not really take it all that seriously, but it makes him happy to have a little studio going on there and to dream about one day hitting it big with a CD. Well, fine, you know, that's good. So better that than wandering around the streets, you know. So she's laid back about that, but she also is kind of encouraging him. And she notes it's been like 2 years since he's taken over the barbershop, how proud she is of him and what he's done there. But his mind is still on the CD and riches and so forth. He brings out a magazine and he shows her a picture of a guest house in Oprah spread. A guest house that includes 5 rooms and 3.5 baths and so forth like this. And she said, well, what are you showing this to me for, you know, Calvin? It's, you know, why? And he said, well, baby, this is going to be yours. I'm going to get you something like this. As soon as I get my CD to go platinum, I get you something like this. We're not going to be just holed up around here in this little old apartment here or whatever. Well, she kind of laughs, and but kind of, again, points him toward the barber shop. This is what she really wants him to do. And on occasion, she reminds him that his grandfather opened out that barber shop and his father had it, and now he has it, 3 generations, that it means a lot to a lot of people. Plus, it makes money. He is, on the other hand, kind of pointing out that, you know, he's not making any money. The barber shop business is not all that great. The neighborhood's running down. The barbers in the shop that he uses, let's use his stools or not, chairs are not really paying him promptly. He has this big property tax thing of $20,000 he owes, and so forth. They're going deeper in debt. It's time maybe to cut the line here and go elsewhere before they are just taken down to the bottom of the lake. Now she says, where's the effect? You know, Calvin, that barbershop was almost debt-free when you got it. And the problem is not that, really. You got to be honest, Calvin. The problem is your get-rich-quick schemes. This is what's draining off the money. This is why we're in debt here. Well, he doesn't really want to admit it, you know, but they smooch, and she's fixed him some breakfast, and he goes on off. When he comes up to about the shop, there's still a commotion outside a convenience store that's run by a Pakistani guy. It turns out that somebody, one or more people, have stolen his ATM. It's a new ATM, and there's just a whole lot of shouting, commotion, and so forth. Ice Cube kind of looks the situation over, saying to himself, this neighborhood's going kind of from bad to worse, you know. It's just a place to get away from. But he tells the Pakistani fellow, well, stay strong and so forth, don't give up and whatnot. He goes to open up his shop. He trades a few comments with a female neighbor who owns a little business next door, a woman who delights in street gossip and so forth, and imparts a little of that, involving a man-woman type situation and maybe a third woman. But at any rate, Ice Cube goes on in, opens up his shop, and before long, the barbers start coming in who are using the chairs, renting. We see a kind of expensive-looking Lexus-type sports vehicle show up, and out comes this white dude looking rather shabby relative to the car. Now, outside are one or two of the barbers, and they're kind of looking at him with apparently a little envy. And it becomes evident when the driver of the vehicle, the woman comes around anyway. She's in the front seat, and you see that she's a very shapely, pretty woman. And she gives this guy a big smooch and sends him off to doing his barbering. And these other two barbers are just kind of like eyes wide open, mouth agape, you know. How does he come off with such a fine lady and such an excellent car and so forth? They refer to it a pimp car, but at any rate, you know, they'd love to have it. The white dude is kind of gregarious, friendly. He goes on, how you doing, what's up, big guy, and all that. Well, he takes his first chair and he's ready for business. Now, Calvin has been meeting, meanwhile, in the back with a well-dressed, portly black gent who he apparently has tried to get some help from in regard to the $20,000. This is not the first time he's conferred with this man. I'm not sure if he's a banker or with, say, a small business administration or a lawyer or what, but at any rate, probably a lawyer. He reminds Calvin that he's gotten a small business loan for him. He's gotten a grant from him and so forth, and there's nothing more. The bank's not going to give him any money now. He's got to come up with that $20,000 or the city is going to foreclose. Once again, we see the really stupid policy of the government, whether local or Fed, in regard to trying to force somebody to pay what they don't have. This is particularly painful when you're in a boarded up, shabby, going down neighborhood that could really use this business to stay, keep going and so forth, to be laying the kind of tax on it that puts it out of the business so that no money is coming in, period, to the government, another boarded up shop, and so forth. If the plan basically sub rosa is gentrification so that some rich real estate types can come in and buy up the whole acreage dirt cheap and then turn it into swank stuff to sell and rent to the elite, well, it's understandable. But otherwise, it's difficult to understand. Anyway, we do get cuts periodically from Calvin, Ice Cube's character in the Barbershop thing, to the two doofus and sometimes very amusing crooks. Now, they have committed a serious felony here. They've run off with an ATM. As I mentioned, it does turn out, ironically, to be empty. They don't know that, but apparently it's so fresh and so forth. Nobody has put the money in. I guess an armored car or something would come around to do that. But they think they're going to get $15,000, $20,000 or more from this machine as soon as they can crack it. So they're taking it from one place to another and trying to get it open. And along the way, they meet up with obstacles such as a huge man who's wearing a kind of a sweatshirt with a Big Daddy label on it, and he is that. And a little niece or something like this extorts some cash from one of the guys to keep her shut up about it. They try to pretend it's a video game that they got in there, and she says it's not. It's a money changer or something like this. You know, she knew exactly what they were up about, and knew she had leverage and managed to get some dough from it. Can't say that this is a sterling example of a well-brought-up child, but anyway, within the milieu, it's understandable, and she got hers. Now, they do go, as I say, from one place to another, desperately trying to do this. They're having all kinds of oddities along the way, One of them drops it on his foot, basically. Another one, his sidekick, kind of a slender, he's kind of portly, a big guy himself in the way, but and also he happens to be the cousin of the barber who is a two-time loser, Ricky, in the shop. Now, this is kind of important in the way because hardly has the ATM come up missing, then a Chicago police officer, a black officer, is kind of looks to be kind of like against Ricky from the outset, knows him from the past, thinks he's no good, and would like to throw him in jail forever. Skipping ahead now, Mr. Wallace, I think, then springs on him that if he wants to change the deal, he's got to come up with $40,000. The $20,000 he gave, because he assumed the debt of $20,000, so he wants that back to $20,000 plus $20,000. Where am I going to get $40,000? Says Calvin. Wow. So this leads on to a bunch of little episodes in which he tries to come up with the money unsuccessfully, and this may have even included some less than lawful schemes. Now, all this comes to a head basically at the very end when the ATM people cart the still unbroken into machine into a chop shop owned by Mr. Wallace, and Calvin and a friend also show up there, and then the police show up. The police have arrested Ricky, the two-time loser, thinking that he was involved. So when he gets there and they all find the ATM there, it saves Ricky's neck. Unfortunately, his cousin is going to have to go down. And Mr. Wallace, under these circumstances, the ATM in his shop, cars of dubious ownership in his shop, the police right there, and lots of people pointing fingers. Leverage occurs, and it is possible now to resolve this. And it just so happens that Ice Cube notes on the ATM that there's a $50,000 reward for the return of the ATM, and he says, well, bingo. So that's how everything smooths out, except for the two doofus guys who go to jail. We're out of time again. This is Top Hat and Buttered Popcorn. My name is John Savers. I'm your host. I appreciate your tuning in. Hope to see you again next time.